most importantly, well received.
All right. Thank you, everybody. It's the February 22nd regular board meeting of the Olentangy Local School District Board of Education. We're coming to you from the Berlin Room at the Olentangy Administrative Offices. I'll call this meeting to order. Mr. Jenkins, can you please call the roll?
Mr. Lester.
Here.
Dr. Daberco.
Here.
Dr. Wallach.
Here.
Mr. O'Brien.
Here.
Ms. Schreiber.
Here.
All right. If you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. I don't believe we have any amendments to the agenda. No? Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? All right, Mr. Jenkins?
Dr. Daberco.
Yes.
Dr. Wallach.
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien.
Yes.
Ms. Schreiber.
Yes.
Mr. Lester.
Yes. Okay, we'll move on to the board president's report. Always glad to see people here in the audience to see the workings of the board, so appreciate everyone being here. As everyone knows, we've got a levy campaign going on. We have a number of ways for people to learn more information. It's our responsibility as a school district to provide that information so that the voters can make up their minds for themselves. We have a number of community conversations that have been going on. I know all of us have attended some of these. I find them to be extraordinarily informative and helpful. So I would encourage everyone that has not had a chance to attend one of those to come up. We still have a couple left. And then I believe we've got, or not I believe, I know that we have our board, or our FAQs on the district website, so a lot of the commonly asked questions. And as we hear questions that are coming up at those community conversations, we're adding those in to the FAQs to keep those current for any questions that people have. So there's really a lot of different places. We're also doing a lot of social media posts to provide information. And again, I just encourage everyone to seek out that information. One of the benefits of those community conversations for us to go there is to hear a lot of questions that people are raising themselves. And I like to take this opportunity to just answer some of those each week as, just based on the ones that we've been hearing. One of the ones that has come up recently is when the way that we've talked about this levy is that it's a three-part levy. There's a 3 mil operating, there's 3 mil for operating, 1.25 mils for permanent improvement, and a no new millage bond that would allow us to build 5 schools that we believe are needed based on the enrollment patterns that are coming in here. That bond is being presented to the community as a no new millage bond, meaning that there will be no additional mills that would be levied to pay for those schools based on that bond. When you go to the auditor's site, though, if you're trying to calculate what your taxes are, the auditor has 2.72 mills that are listed there, and people are asking, well, if the auditor's site says 2.72 mills and you all are saying that it's no additional mills, how does that work? What does that mean? We're going to have Mr. Jenkins talk about this a little bit more in the treasurer's report, but I wanted to talk about it here. The auditor is required to assign a value to what they think that we might need to do or what we might need to collect to do this, or what we would be authorized to collect to do this. It is not necessarily what the school district will actually collect. And this district has a history over a long period of time of presenting to the community that we are doing no additional millage bonds, and then also not actually raising the millage, even if we have the legal authority to do that. So some recent examples are in 2011, 2016, and 2020. All 3 of those, we had a bond where we said that it will be a no new millage bond, and in each of those, we did not raise the millage whatsoever. We are confident, based on our projections, based on the way that we have a history of doing this, that we would not need to raise any millage for that bond portion of it, for the operating 3.0 mills, the 1.25 for permanent improvement. We are asking for those to be raised, but for the bond, we believe that we do not need to do that, and we have a history of doing that in each of these other levies. In fact, the millage rate associated with that has actually gone down over time, including just this past year when this board got together last fall to affirmatively lower that by 0.75 mils. And then we talked more with the auditor, and we actually reduced it 1.25 mils. So even though we've passed a number of issues where we had the authority to raise that millage, we have not done it. We will not do it again based on this, based on all the things that we are representing to the community, and in fact, we've lowered it. To show that, we are passing a resolution, or we're putting up a resolution to pass here tonight that we'll be voting on, and Mr. Jenkins can explain that a little bit more, but that will allow the auditor to state that a little more clearly on their website. And if anyone has any questions about that, we encourage you to reach out, but we really wanted to clarify that because I know that that's been a question that people have had. Again, that millage estimate will be on the ballot, but it is something that while we're legally authorized to collect, we do not intend to collect to satisfy those issues. So again, we'll talk about that a little bit more, but beyond that, does anybody have any committee updates? I think we've had a number of committees that have met since last time, so.
Go ahead.
We had Facilities Committee, so they're moving along with just discussing the new buildings and the progress of our newest elementary that will open this fall. So that's still on track and ready to anticipate that we will have it before even the end of this school year, ready to go in and start, setting it all up for next fall. And then the anticipated buildings that we anticipate to start if all this passes. And so yeah, just getting some updates of the status of that, and some long-term projections as well for things like the high school and things that we think that the committee thinks they will need.
Yeah, perfect.
Anything else?
Yeah, this is right on track.
And then we had Finance and Audit.
Finance and Audit last night, and we reviewed a summary, not the long version, of the annual financial audit, the PAFR, and the annual comprehensive financial report. I think the thing that's most surprising is how much there's checks and balances with this system of public monies. There's a gentleman there who's been doing this committee longer than most of us have probably lived in Olentangy, and he said that he can't even remember when we've ever had anything but the best audit reports. So it was a great meeting, and it was also great because it was only 72 minutes long. So we were able to get out of there in a reasonable amount of time. That was Finance and Audit last night. Looking forward to 5-year forecast at our next Finance and Audit meeting.
Sounds good. And I'll do the Mental Health Committee because Dr. Wallach and I were at the Mental Health Committee last night. As we've talked about before, that committee is just now starting as a full board committee. It was an ad hoc committee for the first year. We've now formalized that, so it will be a permanent part of our board operations. That's a committee that has students, parents, staff, administrators, board members, all working together to talk about pressing mental health issues, the steps that we can take, improvements. We already have a very robust student well-being department. They do a lot of wonderful work, but it's just how do we enhance that? How do we do even more in that space, just because of the critical nature of that. We welcomed 3 new students to that committee, or 4 new students to that committee last night. We try to have a student from every high school beyond that, and unfortunately, some of the students that we had initially graduated. We tried to keep them here, but they decided to graduate, so we had to get new students to jump on that, and it's great to keep those student perspectives fresh. Last night we talked a lot about one of the mottos that we have here in Olentangy is flourish here. But a question really becomes, well, what are the things that might enable you to flourish, or what are the impediments? What are the real world things that might impact that one way or the other? So we started to brainstorm and really think about some steps that we could take to ensure that students can actually achieve everything that they need to achieve, so that faculty and staff are able to perform their very best. So we talked a lot about that. We're going to think about some action steps that come out of that. But it's a great opportunity to really hear directly from the community on those issues. So if you want to add anything to that, and I know you have some other updates.
Yeah, Dr. Daberco, you and I love our data-driven analyses and such, so it was really cool to start talking about, flourish here sounds great, but can we make that quantifiable so that we can really consider where we're excelling or where we have room to improve. We also talked about our OMAS accreditation and also seeking national accreditation, and how that really also holds us to a a higher standard of accountability even, greater reporting and audits of the work that we do. So I think that's all great. I think, is that it on the?
And we also talked about the upcoming wellness workshop that's in the community, that we're going to have a presentation on that, so I don't want to steal Dr. Branson's thunder.
Agreed.
But it's a great event that I encourage everyone here to attend. That's coming up on March 8th, I think. Yes.
8th, 9th.
9th?
9th.
I think it's
9th's a Saturday.
Yeah,
Yes.
sorry, whatever Saturday.
Whatever
Yes,
Saturday.
So, yeah.
And then lastly, I'll just address, on Saturday, February 10th, I was able to attend the Ohio School Boards Association Board of Trustees meeting, which was lovely. We get phenomenal legislative updates, and it's a nice, you spend a better chunk of the day together in community with school board representation from across the state. So that was lovely. And then we were also able to welcome Sally Green, who is a 19-year school board member of Tuskegee Valley. She joined us here in the district on Valentine's Day, on February 14th, and a big shout out to the district leadership team for all of the hard work in preparing a really lovely itinerary where we were able to take Mrs. Green all around the district and showcase the great things we do. We visited Arrowhead, and we came to the building here, we went to Oasis, we were at Shanahan and Olentangy Orange. Everyone was incredibly hospitable. The students were amazing, and I was incredibly proud to showcase what we do here in Olentangy. And a fun little fact that I love addressing is, so Tuskegee Valley, Tuscarawas Valley School District is 95 square miles, just as Olentangy is 95 square miles. But Sally Green's district serves about a little over 1,300 students compared to our almost 24,000. So, you know, just kind of a little fun fact there. I think that is it.
That's good. And it is March 9th. I verified it, so yes. Good. Any updates for you? Good. All right. With that, we will move straight into our agenda. We have a presentation on social studies curriculum in grades 6 through 9. So, Mr. Cherubino, Mr. Chittock, and Ms. Gillespie.
All right, good evening. I am Joe Cherubino, Danielle Gillespie, Fred Chittick. We're all from Liberty Middle. We're the representatives on the committee that's been working since the beginning of school. We have representatives working with the curriculum department from all of the middle schools that come together to really work on this framework. There's a lot of historical misconceptions with what we do in social studies, where it's a lot like memorization and a lot of battles and dates and things. And that sort of content is part of it, but it's much bigger than that. And it really is about analysis and looking at cause and effect and being a good citizen. And this framework really helps that. It's a competency-based framework. I'm going to go to my framework slide. So there are the 5 elements the committee has come up with: civic engagement, cultural awareness, academic literacy, inquiry, and geography and spatial reasoning. And being competency-based as opposed to a lot of memorization of miscellaneous facts and things, because we all carry miniature computers around with us. So the memorization of facts is not as necessary as possibly it might once appear to be. It really does allow it to be a set of skills that they can carry with them throughout their career in social studies, starting in middle school and moving even into high school, so history and government and economics classes. It's an introduction to scholarship. It's an introduction to analyzing sources and who wrote it or created it and when and why and what impact did that have and how do we see the past reflected in the present? What can we learn about ourselves and about our community and about civilization by looking at the past and looking even forward? So it's much more skill-based than memorization. I'm going to let Danielle talk about her parts.
I'm super excited by the work that we are doing here at Central Office with the help of professional development with Dr. Burdage and Mr. Sof over there. I've been teaching in this district for 21 years, and I've been at Liberty Middle School teaching 8th grade for all of those years, 23 total. And I love the work that we're doing there. It is going to make the biggest impact on our students. We are building that 21st century citizen. Mr. Cherubino mentions, they carry these many computers in them. We are going away from that idea that you need to know all these facts. And we are turning to the curriculum is the vehicle. Our content is our vehicle to teach them these skills. And through that, we are going to allow kids to make their own opinions, but teach them through making their own opinions, they have to be able to support their opinions with facts and information. The pictures that you see up here are students from my 8th grade classroom. You want to take those up there? And I brought in the place cards that our students, my students and Mr. Mills's students are working with so that you can see this. What we had done for this inquiry-based activity was we gave our students 5 place cards of political cartoons about the Monroe Doctrine. If you ever sat in a class where a student or a teacher just wants to go on and on and on about the Monroe Doctrine, you lost them as soon as you said the word doctrine. They're like, okay, whatever. What we did is we told them these are about the Monroe Doctrine. We told them it was during James Monroe's presidency, and what do you notice? And we left the kids to do, working collaboratively together, come up with what they could figure out. They came up with lists of things. They noticed, they annotated these pictures, and you can get a lot from these 5 pictures that I've given you here on what is happening. They came up with a basic idea, and they have a place to put that information. So when Mr. Mills and I were then going through that material, we were able to fill in the blanks for the students. They already had formed some ideas, and then we filled it in with the actual historic content, and the kids were engaged the entire time. And you can see with the pictures that we have here, we have small groups working. We had teacher-led groups with some groups, and then we had some of our SLC students that were able to come in to our classroom with the help of an aide to be able to take part in these classroom discussions too. It really does open up that curriculum to everybody, and they're building so many more skills than just learning about the Monroe Doctrine.
Nice slide. So teaming is where it's at. I think you saw some great pictures of Mr. Mills and Ms. Gillespie, outstanding social studies teachers who occasionally will open a wall, team teach together. And we've all had that experience back in '85 to the early '90s. A teacher was pretty much on their own. And since we brought about the teaming process in through the '90s, beginning with the middle school, and now it's gone to all the buildings, it gives you a chance to have the greatness of different teachers bring in their skills, their insight to help the students, and then the students learn on that as well with partnering, with small grouping as well. So what we're doing is now bringing the team together across the district, again, with the great workshops as we're designing this new competency-based framework and putting all the experience of all the teachers together for the benefit of the students with practical lessons that we've been implementing and will be able to revise and tweak feedback from one another, and also going with the guideline of the new framework that is being created for conceivably the next 5 to 10 years for the social studies curriculum.
Any questions? Look like you.
Go for it. You go ahead. You already got it in your head. I can tell.
I'm wondering, how much are you able to make it an inclusive classroom? And I know it all depends on individual student goals and all that, but is that on the radar to make sure that students are learning social studies together because everyone has something to offer that discussion?
You would not think so.
I have a wide variety of students that sit in my classroom. I have the SLC students, and I have the gifted clusters too. So I mean, I go from all ends, and the goal with this really does allow us to differentiate with at every level. You still have often that same, I want you to learn this, but then it's really going to look at that competencies, well, this is where you should be, and then it helps us move each kid to where they need to be. So you're starting here, so I'm going to move you here. And if you're starting here, I need to move you here. And it allows really for us to, as a 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, we're building that framework for it to spiral. Math often has the spiral, so does language arts has a spiral curriculum to it, whereas for the longest time, social studies is kind of like, okay, just go memorize these things, where there's really these skills we want to be developing within our students so that as they start in 6th grade, and by the time they get to me in 8th grade, they've built upon those in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, so that I can, okay, this is where you should be with this, how do I keep pushing you there? And if some teachers are doing it and some teachers aren't, all your kids are coming in at different. So if we get on the same page with that spiral and what it should look at like in each grade level, I really do think it's going to provide a wonderful way for us to continue to grow our students.
So your team teaching could also include intervention specialists
Yep.
and
Oh, yes. Yeah. Oh,
Thank you.
and the more people that come in and more people that, the collaboration time that we get with our colleagues only makes us better.
Perfect, thank you.
It's really important to foster a love of learning in our kiddos, and I have this is what I'm certified to teach, by the way. Do you know that? 4.9 language arts and social studies. This is my jam. So,
You're more than welcome to come teach with us anytime you want.
I'm gonna come hang out. But it's so refreshing I'm looking at this slide that has, the pictures of these kids working together, collaboratively engaged in their learning. And I mean, I don't know, I think back to my middle school social studies experiences, and I had phenomenal educators, but I have distinct memories of just rapid fire note taking. Mm-hmm. And so the focus on the development of skills and this kind of learning environment, I think about that love of learning, and this brings our history to life in a way that rapid-fire note-taking and rote memorization just cannot do. Because we do have those computers in our back pockets. Yeah. So anyway, I appreciate you for all that you're doing.
Well, and so I have an 8th grader this year, and I was really struck at curriculum night when I mean, really by all the teachers, but the social studies teacher was talking about the ways that you all do some of this stuff, and it struck me as quite important when we sort of see how people engage today and how there's so much just screaming at each other, misinformation, that sort of stuff. So you are teaching them history, right? But you're also teaching them how to research and reason and argue persuasively and do it in a constructive way, right? And that's how these lessons really, bring about those skills that they're going to need in the future, so that we get away from some of the negativity and just the not viewing each other appropriately. So that's great. I love that you have it framed on this slide as the 21st century citizen, right? I mean, that's where this field can really be so great, as opposed to preparing you to, answer the question about when the Battle of Hastings was, right? Which, great, I've got that if Jeopardy comes up. but this is so much more valuable, so I appreciate it, truly do.
I appreciate the fact that the district sees a need in this. As a social studies educator, I mean, this is huge, that people are spending time with us and want us to be able to build something like this, because this is what kids need. And that makes me really excited to work in this district and to be offered the professional development that we are given to do this for kids is really impressive. And I love it here in Olentangy. We're in Edutopia is what I tell them.
You have a unique perspective too with the longevity of your career in that role. So you're the past, the present, and the future, looking at the evolution of.
And Fred,
And yes.
Fred, how long have you been here?
Number one on the
Number one
senior
OG.
list here with you too.
Some say too long, but I'm very proud to say 39 years.
And my son is also in 8th grade this year, and my daughter's in 6th grade, both of them in my building, and this is what I want them learning at school. So, I mean, I really do see the value of what we're doing.
That's great. Very good.
I also just wanted to add that I have a 7th grader at Shanahan, and she did a big project through social studies with Greek gods and those sorts of things. And I thought that was a really good vehicle to teach her some of those skills that you, like you were saying, they build year to year. So she learned how to have a long-term project and take it step by step. And it wasn't something that you can't just throw it together overnight. You can't do the research and the building and deciding which Greek god you're going to choose and that sort of thing. So I thought that was a really great way to help kids with sort of those executive function things that they will need to do more and more of independently, and teach them to be independent learners as well. So beyond, I'm totally on board with the framework that you guys are doing, but then also just some of these projects and the way that kids are being taught other skills that they will need through all of their classes. So I'm appreciative of that as well.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Very good. Thank you, Dan. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Our next, I'm glad we're back to the applause after.
I'm a fan.
All right.
New in 2024.
I know, it's great.
Positivity.
So the next presentation is Dr. Branson, who's going to give us the invitation with the correct date for the OLSD Wellness Workshop.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Katie Branson. I am the Assistant Director of Student Wellbeing here at Olentangy. I am here this evening to extend an invitation to our district parents and our staff to our Olentangy Wellness Workshop, which is Saturday, March 9th, and that will be from 8 a.m. to noon at Olentangy Orange High School. The goal of the Wellness Workshop is to help our district parents and staff learn ways that they can support our students' everyday wellness and well-being. The workshop will include a panel discussion featuring Olentangy School students. The goal of that is to give some voice and student perspectives on topics of mental health, wellness, and ways that adults can support them. There will also be a community partner expo featuring local organizations to support parents and staff with information and resources. This expo will run throughout the entire workshop from 8 to noon. The workshop will also include presentations on a variety of topics related to wellness and mental health. Attendees will learn practical strategies through an array of engaging learning opportunities. We have many different organizations that will be joining us that day, including Nationwide Children's Hospital, NAMI, The Ohio State University, and members of Olentangy teaching and administrative teams. Let's see. Some of the session topics include demystifying and understanding anxiety, digital wellness, and helping our students in a digital world, navigating achievement culture, exploring emotions through drawing and art, and embracing hope and managing stress and modeling self-care. So I would encourage all of our parents, our staff, if you have not already, to register for the event. You can register through the Olentangy website, our mobile app, or let's see, some of the links that have been provided in the district newsletter. So, any questions?
Well, I want to say, so this is one of the things that we had talked about in the ad hoc version of the Wellbeing Committee, and we try to provide a lot of resources during the day for students, but parents don't always get those resources, right? So it's really important that we, as we're thinking about sort of a community perspective on this, that we give everybody those opportunities to understand the needs, to have some strategies to cope with some of those things, and really to get the perspective from the students directly. That's one of the things that we certainly heard in the committee meetings, is students feeling like they're not necessarily understood, or that that adults don't quite get where they are. This is a great way to start to do this. So we're looking forward to this, and certainly hoping it will be an annual event where we can do this every year.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what I heard from the students last night, number one, overcoming a fear of being in a room with adults and making themselves vulnerable and sharing their thoughts and experiences. But the passion that I saw and heard of not only, it wasn't, it was not a selfish thing, right? It wasn't about my mental health, my experience, but really seeing what their peers are experiencing as well, and wanting to be solutions to the everyday wellness needs. So I was excited just in our brief meeting last night, really looking forward to this workshop to see all the good things going on.
And the hope, just to be clear, the hope in the future is that we also have student tracks where we're able to offer additional things, but we're piloting it out this year, so, yeah. Great.
Thank you. We hope to see you there.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Meyer with the superintendent's report.
All right, good evening. So we're going to jump right in. Mr. O'Brien?
Thank you.
Yeah. Student stakeholders, so I want to congratulate, we have 5 students who committed to play sports at the next level. So you can see 3 from Berlin, Rico, Spencer, and Mason. Rico soccer at Bowling Green, Spencer football at Toledo, Mason football at Wheeling University. Orange High School 2, Kobe football at Ashland, and Marin O'Brien.
Thank you.
This is your third. This will be your third graduate now, right?
Third graduate,
Third
More to
graduate
go.
at cross country and track and field at Ohio University. So I know that obviously the student athletes are extremely excited, but parents and grandparents and family as well. So congratulations to those students. Also want to wish the best to, we have many state qualifiers in high school speech and debate, which are headed to state competition March 1st and 2nd. So all 4 schools will be represented at the state competition with many qualifiers. So congratulations to our 4 high schools. Students and stakeholders, and this has been a theme through our Bridge Ed program. So want to highlight this activity. This is the 2nd annual OSU Nurse Surge Techs Station event through our Bridge Ed program at Shanahan Middle School with all 6th graders. So the 6th graders, the students rotated through Bovie Cautery Station, a CPR station, a life skills station, because again, when you work, life skills are important when you work with in whatever space and with individuals, and a dissected organs station. So, and again, all stations connect to their 6th grade science curriculum. So a lot of times, for sure, when we bring in guest speakers or these types of activities, we do make connections to the curriculum. One other thing I want to highlight, we have 12 students from our Olentangy Academy who will participate in an actual rotation with Wexner Medical Center. So they're on-site studying clinical laboratories, respiratory therapy, and imaging. So that'll be a neat experience for those 12 students.
I'm glad you read that for us, because I read that as bovine cautery originally. I was wondering what we were doing with that.
Well, yeah. So what is it? So it's electrosurgery. It's an electrosurgery device.
Yeah.
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 Electrosurgery
I was
device.
concerned. First,
Yeah.
So.
Also want to highlight February 15th was National School Resource Officers Appreciation Day. And for sure, we here in Olentangy appreciate the partnership and relationship that we have with the Delaware County Sheriff's Office, and for sure our SROs, because they do very well in our schools. They're part of our school culture as far as working with our school communities, student, staff, and parents. So for sure appreciate what they do each and every day, and they're valued members of the actual staffs of the schools that they're assigned. Also want to note, part of the operational ask coming up with the levy would put safety personnel in all of our elementaries. Currently, we have dedicated SROs in our high schools and middle schools. So the plan moving forward, if we're successful here in March, would be to put dedicated security personnel in all of our elementaries as well, phased in. Learning and organizational development, and extremely proud. And you heard a little bit from our 3 teachers that just presented on the social studies curriculum. So we held our 3rd professional development day of the year, February 16th. So basically, we brought staff together at each level, elementary, middle school, and high school, and then because we have so many elementaries, the elementary staff went to 4 different elementary schools. All of our middle school teachers went to Liberty Middle, and our high school teachers went to Berlin High School. to really enhance teacher toolbox to facilitate maximum learning for every student. And I remember when I first got into education, and I've been in 33 years ago, but I heard this quote: "Show me a school where adults are learning, and I'll show you a school where students are learning." And it's so true. And at the macro level here in our district, you show me a district where adults are learning, and obviously a district where students are learning, and it's so true and so profound. What we continue to do in this district is just simply amazing. With our teachers and with our central office administrators around that alignment piece and how intentional it is meeting the needs of all of our students and obviously providing the best learning experience that we can for all kids. Just extremely proud of the work that we continue to do as a district with our professional development. All right, so moving on, as Mr. Lester said, we have a levy on the ballot, March 19th. So I wanted to, and again, as we hear these questions across many community conversations that we're having really every night of the week, this question: how do district leaders determine that now is the time for Olentangy schools to go on the March ballot? So this question continues to come up, like, why now? And for us, the answer why now is enrollment management. As a district, we continue to grow, and we're projected to grow. You can see there, again, 20% over the next 10 years. But I want to put some context around that. So in 1990, we were about 2,000 students in the district. When I came in the district in 2007, just a little over 13,000, and today over 24,000 students. The last 10 years, we grew by over 5,000 students, so almost the trajectory is almost mirroring the next 10 years, what we faced the last 10 years. And again, if you put it in context, the last 10 years, we built the equivalent to 5 buildings. So we built the high school, middle school, 2 elementaries, and then the additions that we put on 3 elementaries, and then renovating Shanahan Middle School, 12 classrooms there for preschool, which is equivalent to a 3rd elementary. So again, kudos to our facilities committee for the work that they do each and every year, projecting our enrollment growth, so then we as a district can make plans. So I want to mention that because really that's the why. Enrollment's going to continue to grow. In order for us to accommodate enrollment, we need facilities to put kids in.
So, Mr. Mayor, on that point, I think a question that I've heard around this is also, well, okay, yes, enrollment's growing, but why does it have to be this spring as opposed to this fall or next spring or something like that? Can you talk a little bit about if a measure is passed this spring, what it allows us to do from a construction perspective to alleviate and how that ties into all this?
Absolutely. So, and that's really a great question because this spring is critical for us to pass to get started on the construction so that we can open elementary 18 and 19 and 25, 26. Because if we don't pass in the spring and then we decide with collaboration with the board, if we go back on in November, it pushes us back a whole year. Construction-wise, which again just exacerbates the problem in our schools of overcrowding, and also will increase cost for construction because every year we wait, the cost of construction, there is an inflation rate that will go up.
Right. So, an elementary school takes about a year to construct when you're doing it. So if it passes now, what it would allow us to do is start that construction, and then it opens up for the 25-26 school year. And that would be actually 2 elementary schools to really alleviate some of that.
Yeah.
Again, if it doesn't pass, then, we're looking at.
Exactly. It would be a year out, 26, 27, if we were successful in the future. Correct. Also, just want to highlight, and I know, Mr. Lester, you talked about this at the beginning, but it's been really great for us, district leadership team, Mr. Jenkins and I, over the last 5 weeks, having many community conversations, making connections, and being able to educate our stakeholders on the levy facts. So since January 16th, we've been invited to, we've held 10 coffee chats, mostly in people's homes. We've also participated in meetings with community leaders and hosted community conversations at 22 schools. So upcoming, we still have 4 more schools. You can see Shanahan Middle School on February 26th, then Cider Ridge the next day, Olentangy Meadows next week, and then we'll conclude our building community conversations on March 4th there at Glen Oak Elementary. We still have scheduled coffee chats in homes. We'll also continue to meet with community groups right up till March 19th. And I wanted to highlight this because this will be brand new. We will host a virtual community conversation. So this is again a culmination of all of our community conversations in our building, but we're also going to provide the same conversation virtually to the community on Tuesday, March 5th at 6:30 p.m. We're going to share a participant link with our community to join going out tomorrow on the board recap. Right, Krista? Yes. Yes, tomorrow. So we're starting tomorrow. We'll share that link. So again, another opportunity for community members, stakeholders who want to learn about the upcoming levy. Superintendent action items tonight, certified staff action items, classified staff action items, approved seniors for graduation. We have a couple overnight and out-of-state trips, one business management and facilities item, the recommendation to approve the lease agreement with the Y Club, with the YMCA. And really that's because we're adding our 17th elementary Peachblow Crossing next year, and we do reference elementary 18 and 19 for future. So we have Y Club in every one of our elementary schools before and after school care. Obviously, again, it's another service that we provide for parents who need those accommodations for their students before and after school. And I will, again, recommend all of these items in one consent action items. All right. Important dates coming up. State of the Schools. That's coming real quick. That's next week. So next Wednesday, State of the Schools, 6 to 8 at Olentangy High School. So we invite anyone from the community to attend our State of the Schools. It's going to be pretty cool, in my opinion, this year because we are going to showcase student and many of the talents that we have across the district with some of our student groups. So that's next Wednesday. Again, the virtual community conversation Tuesday, March 5th. Certified interview day, which is Wednesday, March 6th, Olentangy administrative offices. End of the third quarter, fast approaching March 7th, teacher workday March 8th, and then again, Olentangy Wellness Workshop, Saturday, March 9th, and our next Board of Education meeting, Thursday, March 7th, right here.
Great. Any questions? All right, good. Thank you, Mr. Ryan.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Jenkins with the Treasurer's Report.
Good evening, board members. I have a few items to go through this evening. They're all related to items on the agenda, and then a couple of things are more about knowing facts about the levy. One of the things that you'll see this evening, this is about the time of the year where we bring forward a slate of properties that we are interested in filing what's called a Board of Revision complaint. The Board of Revisions consists of the county auditor, the county treasurer, and the county prosecutor. And it is a committee that considers the complaint that any entity that owns property in Delaware County might file against the value of their property. Generally, as you might suppose, those would be complaints that would seek to decrease a value. We are basically looking at two types of complaints, and the majority of this slide talks about one where folks' interest might really perk up, which is why would the Olentangy schools ever be the original complainant seeking to ask the auditor to look at the value of a property. Well, we, as a group, made some legislation about a year or so ago, and it's policy 6225. And what that policy does is it sets out why we would get into the business of ultimately looking at a piece of property and saying we think that the value might be too low. Specifically, we want to protect our real tax base, which we know is the most significant source of our funding. As we're going around having these community conversations right now, one of the numbers that we show is that right now 72% of our income comes from local real estate property tax bases. We want to, believe it or not, protect the interest of all constituents, and that's the one that may not seem naturally logical, but where a reduction in value for my neighbor is unwarranted, that serves to potentially increase my taxes. If you think about the best analogy is the real property tax base is a piece of great big pie, and if I cut my piece differently, your piece naturally is going to change size. So ultimately, we know that if every reduction in value were to be granted, that could substantially impact not only the district but also individual homeowners. And again, we notice that reductions in value that aren't warranted can actually increase tax rates for other people. So when do we do this? And this is important for us to point out. We only do it for commercial, industrial, or other income or investment producing type properties. We do not, in any way, shape, or form, decide that we're going to file an original complaint against the average residential homeowner. That's not what we're in the business of doing. The reason we do that, we certainly have heard, and we have some FAQs right now about the levy, where people ask questions about, for lack of a better word, do businesses, do industrial types of properties, do developers pay their fair share? So we are always diligent about making sure that where commercial, industrial, or other income producing or investment properties appear to have sold in a recent arm's length transaction sale for at least $250,000, and they're undervalued such that there would be at least $2,500 of tax revenue at stake, we would file an original complaint. Again, I'll kind of try to spell that out in layman's terms. Imagine running across a property that sold last year for $1.2 million. And yet when we look on the auditor's website, the property is currently appraised at $400,000. There's a recent arm's length transaction sale for that business that seems to indicate that the true value of that property is $1.2 million, not $600,000. So those are the kinds of things that we do because the commercial tax base, most especially, helps to protect our residential homeowners. You know, we've heard a lot about making sure that our commercial tax base is preserved and grown so that the burden of a burgeoning school district doesn't continually just fall on the residential homeowner. There is one other type of complaint that we file, but that is strictly a counter complaint. We only file counter complaints, and what counter means is someone else complained first. They brought forth a BOR complaint. Those we will counter when the revenue at stake is $1,000 or more, or on its face the complaint would be jurisdictionally defective, something about the complaint. For example, you have to be a property owner in Delaware County to file a BOR in Delaware County. We sometimes get folks who live in other counties that will file a BOR. So again, the whole process is designed actually to protect a vital source of our tax revenue, but to do so in such a way that we're holding accountable, so to speak, businesses, commercial, income-producing properties, and certainly not picking on or going after residential homeowners. So questions about those BORs, because one of the items in tonight's agenda is to approve this year's slate of original complaints.
We just ballpark, do we see many of these?
It's funny you asked that. So
I'm leading the witness.
we have a summary that we put together to kind of put into perspective what happens each year. And you will see an uptick in BOR complaints in usually your triennial reappraisal or in your reappraisal years. But if you take a look at what we've done since 2019, on the top of the chart, these would be where we believe we had evidence to substantiate a recent arm's length transaction sale, and yet the property was not valued at that level. It was much less. So the way to read that, for example, in the most recently completed tax year, we filed 35 original complaints and 35 so far have been decided. Now, there could have been, in any given year, you may see those numbers not in sync because these can take some time, these BORs. Of those 35 that were decided, there was a gross addition of assessed value of $1.25 million. So the appraised value that was added was $3.574 million. That was new tax revenue of $613,976, and then we'll continue to get $620,230 to the next reappraisal based on the 5 inside mills that are part of all of those scenarios. So what again that means is the $3.5 million of market value represented about $3.5 million of undervaluation where we had evidence to substantiate that a business or businesses would have been undervalued by that amount. On the bottom half, you will see where we countered to protect value. I suppose it would be possible, it's just not at all probable, that anyone would ever file a complaint to increase their valuation. So all of these counters are where we are saying, hey, we think the auditor's value is correct, and so we counter that complaint. So the way to view that is, if we prevail, or if we reach some sort of negotiated agreement on what the value should be, we're protecting value. So you can see that we have protected value in recent years as high as $17.2 million in 2019, about $7.6 million last year. The tax dollars saved is the way to look at that analysis. So we used to also be able to settle with what's called a direct payment. And all a direct payment means is the owner of the property says, hey, let's just settle this, let's just get this over with. What would that look like? But House Bill 126, which was passed in 2022, has said that those are no longer serving the public's interest, and so those have been done away with. So the end resolution of a BOR now is deciding the true value of a property for the entire benefit of public good. So the very bottom row would show what this process has done in total tax benefits through both protecting value and finding BORs where an individual property is undervalued based on a recent arm's length transaction sale. Questions?
How do you account for this in the forecast? Or maybe you can't.
It would be, a fudge in miscellaneous revenue of 0.1%. It's not easy to account for in the forecast. And despite the numbers that you see there in any one year, it is not a substantial portion of the overall $350 million general fund budget anyway. Now, we could, I suppose, one day have one that would be that substantial. But in fact, I think one of the ones that's on tonight is almost $40 million worth of value. We have a group of condominiums, and there was a recent sale It was nearly $82 million, and yet when we look at the value of all the condominiums put together, it's only about $40 million. So that one I might have to study, but for most of these, 1.4 million, 3 million in any given tax year is not going to move the needle, so to speak. In aggregate, over time, we're doing our due diligence to protect our residential taxpayers from unintended or unwanted consequences when businesses or other entities maybe seek to lower their taxable value or their taxable value should be higher because of a sale and it just hasn't been updated.
When you say protect, you're talking about if you weren't doing this, that money up there would then be distributed amongst us.
If we weren't doing this, then ostensibly levies would be higher because we are not protecting or keeping the tax base where it needs to be based on market data, and where businesses, and I'm not trying to pick on businesses whatsoever because we have good relationships with our businesses and they pay their fair share, but ultimately this is just us making sure that all taxpayers ultimately are accountable. So if commercial taxpayers aren't paying what they should based on the fact that their values are undervalued, that in one way or another is going to be passed on to residential homeowners.
So I just want to underscore that point because obviously we want to have good relationships with everyone in the community, but we have a responsibility to that whole community to make sure that we're doing it fairly. We're not just letting people off the hook. We're not just turning our eyes away from this. When this bill passed a few years ago, I think the idea was probably they would make it more onerous, more difficult for school districts to do this sort of thing, and yet we're continuing to do it because we have this obligation to the community to make sure that we're keeping costs as low as we can. I mean, this is a question that we've heard a lot as the levy campaign has gone on, is what are you doing to make sure that you're keeping costs low for the community? What steps are you taking? And we have a slide in the community conversations that's available online that talks about all the cost saving measures we have. And this to me is just yet another example of that.
Yes, that's the ultimate goal. And again, I'll reiterate, we do not file original complaints on individual residential homeowners. That's just simply not what we're ever going to do. These would represent, again, scenarios 99% of the time of where the value of a piece of residential property owned by a business or a commercial entity is not reflective of probative and other compelling evidence to show that the value should be higher. So, know the facts. Mr. Lester talked earlier about the auditor's webpage and the fact that it's showing 2.72 mils. One of tonight's items is a resolution that the Board of Education is asked to pass that will essentially say, hey, we mean business when we say no additional mills. We've done this multiple times. We're confident that we're going to be able to do it this time. And we've had conversations with our county auditor that ultimately they will disclaim this particular website once this resolution is passed. The disclaimer will say the Olentangy Board of Education has, essentially stated that this will be a no additional millage bond issue. Make no mistake, when you go to the ballot language is very prescriptive and it's required by law. You would still see the 2.72 mils there, which again might cause someone to say, I don't know, have you ever done this before, Olentangy? And so the answer is yes. So that 2.72 mils on the ballot issue will look like $95.20 additional when we as a district are saying $148.75. So again, we have analyzed our debt service fund. We've looked at our amortization schedule. We've looked at forecasted valuation increases, and we know that we're not going to need any of that 2.72 mils. So the question is, well, when has this happened before? Show us recent history. So what we did was we went back and constructed a graph. I'm a math teacher, I love graphs, that shows the history of our bond millage I'm going to start in 2008 because that's the last time there was an increase, and I'm going to be able to explain why. So in 2008, we would have passed a bond issue. If you looked at the ballot, it was for 1.8 mils. So the same thing we're talking about today, the 2.72. The auditor crunched the numbers and came back with, you're going to need 1.8 mils. Well, we only collected 0.82 of that bond issue. So that substantiates that you don't have to collect what the ballot issue ultimately says could be there. But then if you look at the history since then, I've taken little arrows and drawn. 2011, if you looked at the ballot language, it would have been a $500,000 bond issue. We did not collect any additional mills, and notice that that line stays flat, which means that in subsequent years, we didn't increase it. When you get to 2016, we passed another bond issue that was on the ballot for 1.3 mils. We didn't collect any additional mills. In fact, the rate dropped to 8.64. We then, in 2017, just by the natural progression of valuation increases, the bond millage rate dropped to 7.5. In 2020, we would have passed the bond issue that built Berlin Middle, Peach Blow Crossing, and Shale Meadows. That was a 1.7 mil bond issue as it appeared on the ballot. Once again, we did not and have not collected any additional mills. The final thing we did, and we just did this past fall, we proactively reduced the bond millage to 6.25 mils. And we will not have to increase it with this no additional mill bond issue. So since 2011, bond rates have done nothing but decrease. Questions about this strategy, and we're trying to, again, make sure our community knows. We have pledged and we have said no additional mills. We have a track record of being able to fulfill that, and we expect nothing to change moving forward.
Mr. Jenkins, in the past where the district has, going back even further, where the district has increased the mills for debt service, what has it represented to the community around that?
Now, I'm going to go back to 2001, just because I think going back even further than that, who would remember anyway? Some might. That's almost, it's a whole generation of school students, if not almost two. So in 2001, we were able to do a no additional mill bond issue, all the way back in 2001. Obviously, we were growing back then as well. So in 2002, we had another bond issue. That bond issue would have been on the ballot for one full additional mill, and we did need that, and so that's what we collected.
So that was the promise made, and that was the promise that was delivered on.
That's correct. When we got to 2004, we had another bond issue. We were again able to do it for no additional mills. In 2005, we had another bond issue. What was on the ballot was 2.13 mills. We only collected one additional mill. So we weren't able to do no additional mills, but that substantiates that the rate that you see on the ballot is a not to exceed or maximum authority. It does not mean you have to collect it. So of that 2.13, we only collected one additional mill for that bond issue. Then in 2008, what the public would have seen on the ballot issue was 1.8 mills, and we've already described that on this graph, and we only collected 0.82 more mills. Again, the authority was 1.8, but we're only going to increase rates as much as we need to pay debt service, no more. That's why when you get to then 2011, 2016, 2020, and now here in 2024, we are able, assuming it passes, to have no additional mills. The 6.25 mills will spin off more than enough revenue to pay our debt service moving forward into the future.
Mr. Meyer, how many buildings have we built since '01 on these bond issues?
Be Liberty Young.
So it's 01.
Well, Liberty opened in 01, right?
Let me tally.
Probably
Liberty
nearly-
opened in 03.
03.
From the '01 bond issue?
Probably would have been the
Yes,
01.
yeah.
most
built- yeah,
likely.
That would have been for Liberty High School.
Yeah.
I mean, you probably could have 15.
Well, we certainly have, let's go backwards.
Yeah.
Berlin Middle, Berlin High, Shell Meadows, Peach Blow Crossing, Freedom Trail,
Heritage.
Heritage,
Berkshire,
Berkshire,
Orange High School.
Orange High School,
08 was Orange High School.
Liberty, Johnny Cake.
Indian Springs was.
So we're
Indian-
approaching half of our buildings being built since 2000.
Hyatt's, Liberty Tree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm trying to make sure I understand this correctly because I haven't lived here since '01. Basically, a quarter century, at least 3 treasurers, maybe more that I don't know about, 4+ superintendents, oodles of board folks, and every single time they've kept their word.
Correct.
Say 14 buildings. I'm at 13 or 14.
Other
And I
questions?
just want to be clear on the 2008, was that presented to the community as it will increase?
All I know, without obviously being able to go back and dig through all of the archives, clearly I found on the Board of Elections website, where I did go into some archives, that it was a 1.8 mil ballot issue, but when it was all said and done, we only collected 0.82. Did we, to me, what we would always tell the community is even if we knew it couldn't be no additional mills, we're going to do our due diligence and we're going to know what we need to collect. And that just kind of spells out that the factors that the auditor has to look at to determine what the mills are, 4 of the 5 are relatively a total guess. I shouldn't just say total. They're educated guesses, but they could be wrong. For example, interest rate. That's hard to guess. It's hard to estimate. The valuation that the auditor uses is set for 30 years. Well, that assumption all by itself is not realistic. Our value for the next 30 years is not going to stay right where it is as of today. There's a maximum maturity that you calculate according to statute, but that does not mean you have to issue the bonds. Again, it's the same type of concept of you go to a bank and you get a letter that says you're approved for up to $600,000 for a mortgage. That does not mean you're forced to go find a $600,000 home. If you find a great home for $450,000, great. It's the same kind of concept. That what the auditor is calculating is all of these not to exceed limits, but we will not take more than what we need.
And obviously, 2008 was that real estate crash, right? And home prices plummeted.
Yes.
So that is something unique to that year that has not been present any of these other years.
Yeah, I don't know if, I can't speak to if the concept at that time, and that's a great point, Ms. Schreiber, was, hey, we're going to be able to do this, and then the home crash caused that to change. Regardless, what I do know factually is it was 1.8, and we collected almost a full mil less.
So again, I mean, as we look at this history and as we look at, where we've been, and especially over the past year, it's not only taking that into account, but it's building into the forecast to understand, what our ability to do all of this is, and to say, we have this record of doing it, we know where these trends are going, and, we've shown that we can do that, and that's our promise to the community.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, as I thought through, I could think of no better way to show than to just simply say, let's go back 20 years and take a look at our track record. And our track record has been, we've delivered.
Every time.
Yes. So the final thing, and it was an article last week, it's on WBNS, and it was an article that you had to read very carefully because the article if you just glanced through, made it sound like that schools across the state of Ohio have gotten a significant windfall from the legalization of sports gambling and/or lottery or other games of chance. What the article described was ultimately, though, if you read carefully, that the state of Ohio has always used its general fund to principally fund the state funding formula. In the last few years, they have been able to substitute or plug in revenues from lottery and gaming and now sports gaming. At the end of the day, if you take a look, and it's a massive over 6,000 page bill, but if you look at House Bill 33, which is the 24-25 biennium budget, you can actually see the appropriation items. And overall public school funding to the Ohio Department of Education, which they pass on to schools, is somewhere around $16 billion. Of that, formula funding is a specific line, and about 80 to 85% of the line is general fund. Is it true that the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce gets money from lottery and gaming to plug into that formula funding? It absolutely is true. But the article, if you read it quickly, made it sound like that about $36.9 million was an instant windfall that the district got this year. Well, upon closer inspection, that number is this year's formula funding number. They showed Columbus Public getting, 170 some odd million. It was Columbus Public's formula funding number. They showed Dublin, they showed Westerville, they showed several school districts around the Columbus metro area. And in all cases, really what the article to me was saying was gaming and lottery helps to provide part of the formula funding that goes to schools. It was not an add, it was not an increase, it was not an addition to what we're getting in formula funding. Now, we've talked already, as I've stood at this very dais, not podium, for the past, as we've said, over the past 6 months, we are very fortunate and we're very pleased that the state funding formula has provided Olentangy schools with substantial increases during this biennium budget. But we've also said very clearly in our community conversations, as a direct result, this levy ask operationally is 3 mills, not like it was in 2020, which was 7.4 mills, not like it was in 2016, when it was 5.9 mills, and not like it was in 2011, when it was 7.9 mills.
So, again, it's important to say the lowest ask in, what did we decide, 30 years?
30-year operational ask.
Yep.
Lowest operational ask.
Correct. Yeah, so we absolutely know that our state funding has increased, and we're very appreciative, and we say in our community conversations, every dollar we get from the state of Ohio is one less dollar that we ostensibly have to ask for in a levy. And that is reflected in how low this ask is compared to certainly our last three, which all in, including permanent improvement, would have been 7.9, 6.9, 7.9. And this is 4.25.
So to be fair, though, we're still only at two-thirds funded only two-thirds of what Fair School Funding Plan calls for.
Correct.
Through the next year.
Correct.
And we can argue about what we would do if we were a mill short, but it would be a different conversation we're having right now if it was fully funded.
Correct. If the formula was fully funded right now, I can't go on the record to say that I know for a fact it would completely eliminate the need, because our permanent improvement is drastically needed when we have 27 facilities. And should this bond issue pass, we'll have 32. But it would take an even more substantial bite out of the operational ask if the formula was fully funded. And we have told our community multiple times, we will continue to work with our state legislators to make sure that the formula is funded as originally intended.
So going back to your gambling, lottery, in reality, there's really more research that suggests the state legislatures actually cut their contributions to education almost along the same lines of the money they've received from the lottery, magically. So when they get X dollars, there's a corresponding drop. Now, I understand over time that has increased, but that drop, that increase can also be, I don't think it's one-to-one, but there's more research that shows that those funds, am I saying it right, are fungible, which means, yes, we're getting money from this, but unlike the promises made in the early 1970s that said the income tax in Ohio would solve school funding or lottery would solve school funding, not sure if that has happened.
I would only say it this way. At no point in time has all of the proceeds from gaming, lottery, or other legalized state gambling simply been used to completely augment, increase, or add to educational funding. I don't know the exact formula of how it has, in technical terms, I hate to use this word because it sounds awful from a treasurer. We hate when people use the word supplant. How much has lottery funds supplanted what would have otherwise come from the general fund? I don't know. I can't even gather what that might be. What I can say with full confidence, it's not as if, let's say the budget in 1 year was $2, and now all of a sudden lottery funding gives you 3 more. We didn't just all of a sudden jump up to 5. That's never happened. So then the items for tonight, as a part of the consent agenda, minutes from February 6th, the noted donations on the screen from Liberty High School boosters, the Olentangy High School boosters, and then another one from the Liberty boosters. Updated appropriations for fiscal year 2024. Approval of the January 2024 financial report. The resolution we spoke of earlier, that is us vowing and stating that we will do no new mills for the bond portion. The alternative tax budget for fiscal year 2025, wasn't a whole lot said about that document, but if you kind of want to see the beginnings of our appropriations for fiscal 25 across all funds, see what projection into the next fiscal year looks like, we actually start that now. And those will be recommended for approval by one consent vote unless something needs to be pulled out and discussed further. And then finally, the Board of Revision resolutions must be considered as their own item. All of the resolutions can be one, but BOR has to be its own standalone item. And if there's no other questions, I'll go ahead and take my seat.
Thank you, Mr. Jenkins.
Hey, Dr. Dabrico, the team did some research. So 6 schools in the 90s, 1 opened in 2002 and 2001.
Say that one more time.
6 in the 90s, 1 opened in 2002 and 2001. So 18 since 2001.
18 since 2001.
18.
There you go. All right, public
Thank you,
participation.
Mr.
Glad we
Meyer.
didn't clap for him.
Oh,
Don't.
no one can supplant you.
Oh, fancy and said dais. The podium is what you stand on. The
Yeah,
dais is
that's
what
right.
you...
Thank you.
So tonight we have Eli Erlanger, who wants to speak about books and censorship.
Thank you, Mr. Erlander.
I'd just like to start off by saying that I'm truly grateful to be able to present to a public forum. It's been the goal since I started writing this speech, and I'm actually doing this because I was tasked with giving a speech somewhere in my school about something I'm passionate about, but I wanted to actually bring it to life where stuff actually happens, so I'm here tonight. So now I'm going to begin, and thank you. So I'm here to discuss the effects of book bannings and urge the need for reading materials to be available for our youth. In my freshman year of high school, I read The Catcher in the Rye. This was not only a book to me, but a map to navigating life as an adolescent. The book taught me ways and gave me new ideas of how to operate in a confusing world. Although the world it is set in is vastly different, all of the lessons I learned were applicable to my life as a teen in the 21st century. Before this, I never knew that words on a page could make me feel comfortable. It greatly helped with my sense of belonging in a transitional period in my life. Sadly, this book has many attempts to be banned. The Catcher in the Rye, between the years of 1986 to 2000, was attempted to be banned 9 separate times. Of those 9, 3 were successful. Those bans took place in Wyoming, North Dakota, and California. In my life, one of the most influential and important pieces of literature I read was The Diary of a Young Girl by Anne Frank. It details the horrors of living through the Holocaust from the point of view of a Jewish person in hiding. During the Holocaust, the Nazis banned books. They would hold public book burnings with mounds piling multiple feet high. I'm Jewish, and throughout this reading I struggled. I had to take breaks at points, and it was stomach-turning to read through, yet it is one of the most important things I've ever read. Besides going to temple, it is the most in touch I've ever felt with my Jewish heritage. It caused me to feel compelled to do extra research. It hurt, it was scary, and it was eye-opening, but most importantly, it was necessary. A quote that still stands with me to this day is, "I don't think of all the misery, but of the beauty that still remains." The most important things in life aren't easy, but they are necessary. Sometimes things need to be heavy. We don't live in a perfect world. In Ohio in 2022, there were the 9th most attempts to ban books in the country. Previously, book banning usually pertained to one specific book per challenge. In 2022, however, 90% of banning attempts targeted multiple books. Of 1,269 attempts nationwide to ban 2,571 individual books, 40% attempted to ban 100 or more books at once. Between July 1st, 2021 through March 31st, 2022, 1,586 books were banned in 86 school districts across 26 states. This affected more than 2 million children. I want to share a story with you all. It's the story of an attempt to ban books which failed. It began in Strongsville, Ohio in 1976. Local school board members voted to ban Catch-22 by Joseph Heller and other works by the likes of Kurt Vonnegut. They planned to remove the books both from the curriculum as well as the school libraries. They claimed 5 students sued the school board through their parents. They claimed this violated their First Amendment rights. The case went to the Sixth Circuit of the Federal Appeals Court. The court ruled that the school operated within their bounds in regards to determining what books could be used in the classroom. In terms of the removal of library books, however, the court stated, "Here we are concerned with the right of the students to receive information which they and their teachers desire them to have." The court ruled in favor of the students in this case. Overall, the banning and censorships in a school library was deemed in violation of the students' First Amendment rights. As a student myself, I urge you to act and help protect our freedoms as students and as future members of society. Thank you.
Thank you. So, whenever we have, we always enjoy having public participation. We don't get as much as we used to. Back when I was running for school board, we had a whole lot of people coming. But we always enjoy having public participation, but we especially enjoy it when we have students come to share their views. I want to thank you for a very thoughtful and eloquent speech. As an English major myself, I believe very strongly that books have power and they're important. I know the district is very committed to that, but I especially just want to thank you for how thoughtfully and articulately and persuasively you presented your position. So thank you.
Thank you.
I took a quote. You said something that really spoke to me, and so I tracked it. And nice eye contact, too.
Yeah.
You were so very adept speech giver.
Thank you.
Feels like American Idol, where we're. You are going to Hollywood. Eli. So I'm
Yes,
going to
sir.
tell you, the best thing for someone who's older like me, whose hearing is quickly fleeting, thank you for being loud. Even with the microphone, sometimes I can't hear folks, so thank you for being loud. And I'm going to tell you the best way to do public speaking is to talk about something that's important to you and it's passionate, and I could see that in your talking to us. So thank you for being here. It's hard to talk in front of people, believe me. So thank you for being here. You are very much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Good job again.
All right.
Thank you for waiting.
Yeah.
To do that.
All right. right. Mr. Jenkins, you have a tough act to follow. Do you want to present your consent items?
Yes, board members, for your approval this evening, as one motion, second, and vote, unless any of these items are desired to be pulled out separately, would be item A, which is the approval of the February 6th, 2024 Board of Education meeting minutes. Item B, the recommendation of the approval of the acceptance of the noted donations. Item C, recommended approval of the fiscal year 2024 updated appropriations. Item D, recommend approval of the January 2024 monthly treasurer's financial report. Item E, recommended approval of a resolution setting the millage limit of no additional mills for the March 19th, 2024 ballot issue. And item F, the alternative tax budget for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2024. Those items are recommended for approval by one single motion, unless they would like to be, any board member would like to pull them out and discuss separately.
Would anybody like to pull any of these out?
No.
Okay, can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All right, Mr. Jenkins.
Dr. Wallach,
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien,
Yes.
Ms. Schreiber,
Yes.
Mr. Lester,
Yes.
Dr. Dabrico.
Yes.
Okay, and then treasurer, separate action item.
Yes, you'll see, as noted in the treasurer's report, the list of resolutions and the noted properties that I am asking this board to approve to file the noted Board of Revision complaints, unless there are questions or other comments.
Okay, can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
A second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All right, Mr. Jenkins.
Mr. O'Brien,
Yes.
Ms. Schreiber,
Yes.
Mr. Lester,
Yes.
Dr. Dabrico,
Yes.
Dr. Wallach.
Yes.
All right, Mr. Meyer.
Okay, thank you. Board members, I recommend approval of the following superintendent consent action items: specific human resource items, certified staff; specific human resource items, classified staff; approvals of seniors for graduation pending certification of completion of all district, state, and local requirements; approval of student overnight out-of-town field trips; and approval of business management and facilities items. I'm asking you to approve items A through E by one single action and vote, unless you'd like to discuss any of these items separately.
Anybody want to discuss them separately?
Nope.
All right, can I have a motion?
I'll move.
A second?
Second, Mr. Jenkins.
All right, a discussion. All right, Mr. Jenkins.
One of the items was incorrectly marked. I had to change it real quick. So that was Ms. Schreiber and Dr. Dabrico, correct?
Correct.
Ms. Schreiber,
Yes.
Mr. Lester,
Yes.
Dr. Dabrico,
Yes.
Dr. Wallach,
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien.
Yes.
Okay, I neglected to mention at the outset, we have an executive session tonight. We are going to executive session as permitted by Section 121.22G1 of the Ohio Revised Code to consider the employment of a public employee. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
A second?
I'll second.
Any discussion on this?
Mr. Lester, will we be returning to take any action?
We will not be returning to
Thank
take
you.
any
That's hard to
action,
get out.
only to adjourn. Thank you for that.
It's tough.
All right, Mr. Jenkins.
Mr. Lester,
Yes.
Dr. Dabrico,
Yes.
Dr. Wallach,
Yes.
Mr. And
Yes.
Ms. Schreiber.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
You were forgetting about me.
For the-
It's a seizure.
Okay, it is 9:03 PM. I'll call the meeting back to order. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Nope. All right, Mr. Jenkins. Mr. Jenkins.
Whenever you're ready, take your time.
You came back in early.
Yeah, I thought you came in early to get ready.
Oh, please. Mr. Lester?
Yes.
Dr. Davrico?
Yes.
Dr. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Ms. Schreiber?
Yes.
Thank you, everyone.